The conference room was unusually full, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Every seat was taken. People stood against the back wall, clutching notebooks they would not need, waiting for a tradition that had defined February for over a decade. It was the moment when the company acknowledged our sacrifices, our late nights, our weekends swallowed by deadlines. We were not asking for a favor. We were expecting what had always been promised: $8,000 each. A number woven into our annual plans, already spent in our minds on overdue medical treatments, tuition fees, and mortgage installments. The CEO walked in with the confidence of a man who believed he would not be questioned. He did not smile, and he did not look tired. His calmness felt rehearsed. He adjusted his tie, opened a folder, and released a sentence that felt heavier than any document he could have carried. He claimed that global financial conditions made it impossible to issue bonuses on time. He spoke slowly, as if postponing disappointment by stretching every word. The room did not react. There were no raised voices or complaints. There was only a silence dense enough to make breathing difficult. Someone at the end of the table leaned forward and whispered news that traveled quicker than any official announcement. Our CEO had completed the purchase of another seaside retreat, a luxurious estate complete with a private marina and designer landscaping. That revelation cracked the silence. It felt like an open palm across the face of every loyal employee. The explanation we had been given was no longer a delay. It was a declaration of priorities. That moment did not ignite anger in me. It ignited something far more precise. It awakened the part of my mind that does not feel. It calculates. It plans. It waits. I was never invited to executive dinners, nor was I included in the circles where decisions were toasted with expensive wine. My desk was not placed in a corner office overlooking the city. It sat quietly near the servers, close to invoices that carried more truth than any speech from leadership. The company believed that proximity to numbers did not grant power. They forgot that numbers are storytellers, and I had learned how to listen. For years, I monitored transactions like a doctor monitors a heartbeat. I knew the rhythm of our income, the peaks of seasonal contracts, and the lifeline of our cash reserves. Nothing in our financial system trembled. There were no warning lights. Revenue soared higher than any previous quarter, supported by new clients who trusted our reliability. Payments from partners arrived early, and cost reductions implemented months earlier were yielding generous savings. The supposed economic turbulence did not touch us. It existed only in the mouth that pronounced it. The bonuses were not victims of hardship. They were casualties of indulgence. A quiet afternoon spent reconciling accounts revealed the truth. A substantial payment labeled as property enhancement appeared. It was not for expanding a workspace or improving facilities. It was for exotic tiles, imported gardening structures, and a breathtaking infinity pool that reflected the sky more faithfully than any equity report. The man who lectured us about discipline and corporate loyalty used the company treasury like a personal treasure chest. His tastes grew more extravagant every season. Outdoor furniture crafted from rare materials cost more than the entire annual wellness budget designed to prevent employee burnout. At that moment, my perspective shifted. I no longer saw numbers. I saw motives disguised as spreadsheets. Competence had collided with deceit, and the memory of that collision did not fade. It sharpened, waiting for its time. There is a peculiar comfort executives develop when they assume loyalty cannot coexist with intelligence. They see quiet employees as harmless, the kind who take instructions and never think beyond their job descriptions. I fit that image perfectly, or so they believed. While others avoided certain corridors whenever the CEO appeared, I walked past them unnoticed, holding something far more valuable than fear. I held the keys to the invisible kingdom that kept this company alive. Years spent solving crises no one else understood had earned me unrestricted access to internal systems. Nobody questioned it, not because they trusted me, but because they never imagined someone like me could matter. My passwords unlocked gateways that executives did not even know existed. I monitored the movement of digital approvals, payroll configurations, expense reports, and hidden administrative panels created before half of our leadership was hired. The CEO lived in a world of applause and titles. I lived in a world of permissions and protocols. He thought authority lay in a signature. I knew it lived in the architecture that made signatures relevant. Each system was like a room in a mansion he owned but never explored. I became familiar with every corner. Late evenings, when the office was silent and the only sound came from humming servers, I discovered clauses that had been forgotten by the very people who wrote them. Automatic sequences, legal triggers, and compliance locks created years ago waited patiently for someone patient enough to see their worth. I did not force anything. I did not trespass where I was not authorized. I simply opened doors that were already mine to enter. Revenge did not take root in fury. It awakened in clarity. It realized that the greatest advantage does not come from raising a voice, but from understanding where the wires connect and who will collapse when they are unplugged. The company prided itself on being modern, efficient, and technologically superior. It loved to speak about innovation as if the word alone funded progress. Yet beneath all the speeches and glossy presentations, there was a single structure that held everything together. It was a payroll node I had designed years earlier, an automated system built to ensure that salaries flowed without delay, regardless of executive whims. No one questioned how it worked. They only cared that it worked. To them, it was a silent machine. To me, it was a vault of truth waiting to be opened. Executives assumed it existed to serve them. They never realized it protected employees from the very leaders who claimed to protect us. The system recorded every approval, every redirected fund, every adjustment masked behind vague accounting phrases. It did so without emotion, without bias, and without the selective memory humans so often depend on. I had built fail-safes that responded to inconsistencies with quiet efficiency. If someone diverted money intended for staff compensation, the system did more than register it. It documented the trail, preserved the signatures, and time-stamped every decision. While the CEO lectured us about the importance of sacrifice and patience, the payroll node showed me a different story. It displayed transfers disguised as corporate improvements, invoices linked to private contractors, and a chain of approvals that led directly to a property he did not want anyone to know he purchased. He had been so focused on maintaining his image that he forgot systems never flatter. They only reflect reality. I did not alter files or manipulate access. I simply exposed what was already written. The system he ignored became the mirror he could not escape. In that reflection, numbers spoke louder than any accusation could, and once truth becomes visible, it can never be buried again. The moment arrived long before anyone realized something was coming. The building was still wrapped in early morning silence, and the corridors smelled of fresh coffee and ambition. While most of the leadership team was still choosing ties or hurrying children out of the door, their phones vibrated with a notification that did not wait for office hours. One email. Its subject line was plain, almost dull in its simplicity, as though it carried nothing more significant than a routine update. Yet the content inside was heavier than any scandal the company had ever faced. There were no emotional statements or personal attacks. The message spoke in the cold, unwavering language of documentation. The attachment held proof collected with precision, screenshots from the payroll system, transaction references tied to executive approvals, and legal frameworks showing the specific regulations violated by the reallocation of funds. It did not scream. It whispered. And that whisper struck harder than any outburst could have. The numbers told the story with surgical clarity. The bonuses that had been postponed for the sake of alleged financial caution had not vanished. They had been transformed into marble terraces, saltwater pools, and luxury amenities far from corporate headquarters. Board members scanned the evidence, each line revealing a choice made without their knowledge and against every compliance protocol. Their first reaction was not indignation. It was fear. Fear of shareholders asking questions. Fear of auditors arriving unannounced. Fear of losing control of a narrative they had not even known existed. The discovery was not a misunderstanding. It was a calculated betrayal of trust with a price tag attached to it. In that moment, the CEO stopped being an untouchable leader. He became the source of a problem that demanded resolution. Crises do not negotiate. They consume whoever stands closest to the fire. The boardroom was a space he once dominated without effort. He would enter with the certainty of someone who believed his voice shaped reality. Chairs straightened when he appeared. Conversations paused. People pretended to be busy, even if they understood little of what was happening. On that morning, he tried to perform the same ritual. He adjusted his cufflinks, straightened his jacket, and delivered a smile polished by years of power. He expected applause, or at least obedience. What he encountered instead was a silence that weighed more than any applause ever had. The board members were not leaning forward to hear his opinion. They were studying documents that spoke louder than he could. Screens displayed timelines that matched personal expenditures with postponed bonuses. Receipts traced luxury renovations and undisclosed payments. Every sentence he attempted fell against the immovable wall of irrefutable evidence. He raised his voice, but the louder he became, the smaller he looked. His grand speeches about economic caution sounded absurd in front of photographs of a newly constructed seaside terrace built during a supposed financial drought. Nobody asked for more explanations. They asked for confirmations. Who authorized this? Why were funds reclassified without approval? What justification existed for an infinity pool when employees could not receive compensation they had earned? His attempts to charm the room slipped into desperation. The board did not suspend him. They employed a method far more devastating. They removed his influence while leaving him physically present. His access to systems was disabled. His signatory rights vanished. His office became a room he could enter but no longer command. When he finally stepped outside, he did not look powerful. He looked unfamiliar, as if stripped of something he could not name. In that single meeting, the man who once ruled the company discovered a truth leaders often learn too late. Authority borrowed from others can be reclaimed without notice, and the architect of fear had become the blueprint for his own downfall. Midnight arrived without ceremony. Most people slept unaware that something long overdue was unfolding in silence. The payroll system awakened exactly as it was designed to, following commands embedded long before anyone imagined they would become instruments of justice. Funds that had been withheld for reasons wrapped in arrogance now flowed into employee accounts. The numbers did not hesitate. They traveled through encrypted channels and settled into bank balances that had suffered under weeks of uncertainty. When morning came, phones buzzed with notifications that felt like small miracles. Tears appeared in offices that had forgotten what relief felt like. Laughter echoed in hallways where exhaustion once lived. It was not generosity. It was restitution. The bonuses did more than restore finances. They restored dignity. Parents immediately scheduled long postponed medical checkups for their children. A grandmother announced she could finally afford a surgery she had delayed out of fear. Someone paid off rent that had been accumulating like a silent threat. The celebration was not loud. It was personal. It happened in kitchens, in cars, and in whispered prayers of gratitude. None of them knew who ensured the law was followed. They simply knew someone had refused to let injustice settle as policy. While the company buzzed with gratitude, another scene unfolded miles away. The former king of the boardroom woke up in his luxurious beach home, unaware of the message waiting for him. His smart panels flickered to life as his systems synchronized with the network. Every screen glowed with a sentence he could not ignore. It appeared in his living room, his bedroom. Even beside the pool, he valued more than his employees. The words did not accuse him. They informed him. Bonuses delivered. It was not revenge. It was closure. A silent message that power had shifted without raising a single hand or voice. He did not lose everything he collected. His mansion still stands against the horizon, its walls reflecting the sun with the arrogance of money that was never meant for one person alone. The pool he commissioned still merges with the coastline. The rooms remain filled with objects that impressed strangers more than they comforted him. Yet the one possession he cherished above all, the authority that defined his identity, slipped from his hands without protest. Titles vanish more quickly than marble can erode. The board did not stage a spectacle. There were no dramatic announcements or public humiliations. They replaced him with the precision of surgeons removing a tumor. They adjusted contracts, revised delegations of power, and introduced a leadership structure designed to prevent any future misuse of authority. His name was deleted from directories, his influence dissolved into a footnote, his role reassigned to someone who understood that leadership demands transparency before luxury. His mansion survived. His influence did not. I never stood before him demanding apologies. I never raised a finger to point blame. I walked past him like any other employee, silent and invisible, knowing that truth moves faster than rage ever can. My revenge required no shouting. It required patience. He delayed our bonuses to fund a lifestyle he thought would remain hidden. I delivered those bonuses and replaced his silence with accountability. His downfall was not built on sabotage. It was built on facts too heavy to ignore. He once believed power meant being the loudest voice in the room. Now he understands that the loudest voice belongs to consequences. His portrait still hangs in the hallway, but no one pauses to look at it. His legacy is no longer wealth. It is a cautionary tale whispered between closed doors. Revenge was never chaos. It was timing, and timing finished what I never had to start.